We'll see.
We'll see.
I've got a question for you on the topic. Bryce just tossed out the name Orishano, right? He is also familiar with a player, by the name of Yakumakis, who went from MLS to Cruz Azul of Liga MX. Orishano was approached by Cruz Azul of Liga MX. Mateus Bogusz supposedly is now either in late stage talks, or I don't know if maybe it's reported that it's a done deal, but and you stop me if you heard this before. Cruz Azul of Liga MX pursuing Bogusz from LAFC. I think, does the trend that players are being approached by Liga MX teams concern you? Or do you think it's maybe an acknowledgement that MLS is finally starting to hit a point where we have players, worth taking, and it's not just like one or two occasionally moving to other leagues, but even you're not like captains, not stars of a team going to other teams.
I've said before that I think MLS needs to look at Liga MX as a market because it feels like it's like almost taboo to sign players from Liga MX for MLS teams. And so it'd be kind of weird for me to say on the flip side, oh, I'm worried that Liga MX is taking our players.
But they
Uh,
are.
they are, but I think that there needs to be an open market there, actually. And so, we see Vasquez go there and then we see Vasquez come back, as we were talking about briefly earlier. I think that's fine. I think that's good. I think there should be more intra-league transfers between the two leagues. We rarely see MLS go and get a player from the GMX, probably because of the international rule and whatnot. And we rarely see Liga MX come to MLS, but obviously that is changing here with the few players that you just called out. In the last few windows, we've seen them take a couple MLS players. So I think it's fine. I'm not too concerned about it. Bryce, what do you think?
Right now, I'm not either. I think what Cruz Azul is figuring out to an extent, like Yakumakis and the Faku pursuits, of course, they're designated players, and Orlando and Atlanta could up their pay to match Cruz Azul. Whether that's the right thing to do, that's a different story. But I think Cruz Azul, like with the Bogush and the Orishano stuff, like they know that there's a cap when it comes to how much these teams can afford. And Cincinnati basically, like, they're capped. And they literally just gave a deal. Bogush, like LAFC has a lot of talent on that team, and they've already had to let some key pieces go, like Ilya Sanchez. Um, they were able to keep Aaron Long. They added Jeremy Obissier. So, like, they're not going to be able right before the season starts to up Bogush's pay to fit in the 2025 cap because they've signed to a contract and they're expecting this is what he's at this year and this is how we can build our team around the contracts we have. We can't just go out and double a guy's salary because another team's pushing for it. And I think even like another team bought Omar Campos from LAFC this offseason for Liga MX. I think they're starting to dive into the middle ground player market here because they know we're kind of capped of how much we can pay. I think I don't have a worry because I think the two leagues kind of, they kind of seesaw each other. Like when Liga MX thinks they have something figured out, MLS finds a way to add flexibility, find a new rule to continue to compete with them. And I think if it does become a problem, MLS will find a way to fix it, and then you might see the roles flip. So I think it's interesting, and it's kind of happening more noticeably these last two windows, but I guess I'm not too worried about it right now.
Fair enough. Look, ultimately, I think it's a good sign in my mind, at least, that it's not like they're coming in saying like, oh, we need the absolute best player off every single one of these teams and we're going to offer them tons more money than anything else. Like they're finding guys who we already knew they were good. Now we just know that, the market for them is maybe a little bit higher up than where we had them, which ultimately that's probably good for the player as well. Cause again, time limited careers. If a little bit of money goes to the teams, well, now apparently they've got the flexibility to convert some of that into GAM. So maybe that ends up helping out a player downstream who can get a slightly larger salary because now they've got the flexibility for it. But I think it's a good sign that, like you said, Bryce, mid-range player, like not your top end guy, is being picked up. Your scouting department is doing something right.
And how successful Cincinnati has been. I don't want to talk about the last couple windows with them not going out, but Cincinnati and LAFC have hit on a lot of signings recently. So when you're seeing like their middle of the pack guys getting hit, I tend to believe that they're going to find a good replacement. I know Celtic already is not. LAFC just brought in a center midfielder on loan from Celtic, a 21-year-old midfielder, and I think they're trying to bring Lewis O'Brien back. So they have contingency plans if Bogusz goes, and you would hope these scouting departments that are hitting on these signings, you lose middle pack players. I'm sure they're ready to pivot. Good clubs are ready for that because that means you're doing something right. I always remember Garth Lagerwey saying that, if your players are involved in transfer talks, that means you have good players. It means other clubs want your players. It's better than buying out the contracts for sure.